All right, now we read from 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 26. Brothers and sisters, I received from the Lord what I also handed on to you, that the Lord Jesus, on the night he was handed over, took bread, and after he had given thanks, broke it, and said, "This is my body that is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way also the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the death of the Lord until he comes." Okay, super good. So we know about the Last Supper in the Gospels in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, how all three of them record a narrative account of the Last Supper, whereas John's account of the Last Supper is a little bit different. It's more drawn out. It's over the course of several chapters. We've been hearing from the Last Supper discourse in Sunday readings throughout the end of the Easter season, and I think even last weekend we did it as well. So that's John's is a little bit different. Then Paul he writes about this. Peter in his letters doesn't write about it. John in his letters doesn't write about it. James in his doesn't. Jude doesn't. So it's really Paul in 1 Corinthians is the only place where there's a Last Supper narrative, which is significant because Paul, of course, was not at the Last Supper. For that matter, neither was Mark or Luke were at the Last Supper, and yet they have the narrative. So really, it's only Matthew, I guess, who gives us like a firsthand. And John does too, but it's not the same type of narrative. He obviously gives us a firsthand account of what took place. In fact, a more detailed account of what took place at the Last Supper than Matthew does. Anyways, it's fascinating. Okay, so Paul says what? I received from the Lord what I also handed on to you. So there's this sense, actually, this word, I also handed on to you. The word there is paradidomi, which I don't know Greek, but someone who knows Greek told me that this word, it means tradition. I traditioned it. So he could say, I received from the Lord what I also traditioned to you. That's a really significant thing. Paul here, of course, is writing this down, but sometimes you'll have Christians who will say, well, where's that in the Bible? Or where's that in the Bible? Well, Paul here is even before he's written this down, he had already spoken to them something and taught them the way to live the Christian life that was not found within the context of anything that he had written down. So that in itself is I don't know, just kind of a neat thing that the Mass is part of the tradition. Now, of course, we look at the Bible and we see that the Bible, the Gospels especially, give this command where Jesus says to do this. But alongside of that, there's this understanding of sacred tradition, apostolic tradition, that is handed on over the course of the centuries. And so Paul here is relaying that, like, yes, now I'm writing it down, but I have already given this to you, actually. I received what I already gave to you. I already traditioned it to you. That what? That the Lord Jesus, on the night he was betrayed, handed over by Judas, he took bread, and after he had given thanks, he broke it and said. So remember our gospel passage where that language, he took it, he blessed it, he broke it, and he gave it to them. Paul here uses slightly different words, but it's practically the same thing, where he took bread, he, instead of blessing it, he gave thanks, which is a way of blessing it anyways. He broke it and he said, this is my body, which implies like he gave it to them. This is my body that is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. That word remembrance, the word is anamnesis, which points to a ritualized understanding of remembering something. Not with our limited human memory, but remembering something with God's memory. God, who works outside of time, and so he does not experience things from the past or the future, but for God who has everything in the present. So to do this in memory of Jesus is to remember it with God's own memory, which is to say that every time you do it, it is now here in the present. That what was in the past for us is represented to us in the present. Not represented, not symbolized merely, but it is represented to us in the present moment. By God's divine mystery, this is what takes place. And this is why we can say that the Eucharist, the Eucharistic sacrifice of the Mass, it somehow brings us back to the moment of the Last Supper and the moment of Calvary all at once, where Jesus gives his body, his blood, soul, and divinity, both in the Eucharist at the Last Supper and on the cross at Calvary. With his memory, all of those things are in the present moment. With God's memory, they're in the present moment. And so when we come to Mass for this memorial offering, those things are like bound up into one along with us, or we are bound up into them, I suppose, so that they are truly with us. And of course, the resurrection is also included within that because, like I mentioned in the last session, the Eucharist is not the dead, static presence of the body of Jesus, but it is the living body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus. So that even if you only receive the Eucharistic host or only receive the precious blood, you don't receive both species, you are receiving the living presence of Jesus, because a person cannot be alive without his blood coursing through his veins. And so if I receive what is the Eucharistic host, the body of the Lord, I understand that Jesus is risen from the dead. And so the blood is there in a real way, even though I don't experience it in that way. My senses don't experience it in the same way that I experience the host itself. Or if I drink the precious blood from the chalice, the body of the Lord is there also, because if the blood is separated from the body, that means we've got a dead person. But we know that Jesus Christ is living forever, actually. And so in making the Eucharist present for us, in performing that miracle of bread and wine, what happens? He becomes alive before us. It's not that he becomes alive, it's that he presents himself to us alive, which is really remarkable. Okay, so then as often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the death of the Lord until he comes. So this word proclaim, there's a Greek word for it, but a Hebrew word for proclaim is Haggadah, which is language that is similar to language that is used at the Passover. There was a particular proclamation of God's deliverance of the people of Israel, bringing them into freedom with the Passover lamb as the kind of centerpiece of all of that. So too now when we come together for the Eucharistic, the new Passover of the Lord, what is at the center is that, and as a result, there's a proclamation of what God has done for us. And we proclaim the death of the Lord until he comes. That is to say that we know that Jesus is going to return again for a second time. And when he comes a second time, he is going to judge us, to judge the living and the dead. Really a thing for us to look forward to, as we anticipate his return and his coming again. And we rejoice in this miracle of bread and wine that he provides for us, even while we wait for the miracle to cease, because in heaven there will be no more need for the sacraments, because we will see God face to face. So good. Okay, there we go. That's our whole session. I thought I had something else that I was going to say, but I can't remember it. So we're going to call it a day and look forward to next week. We will see you next week. And thanks for joining me. If you find this to be helpful, by all means, share and subscribe and like and do all the things they tell you to do, so that we can expand the reach. If things go well here, if lots of people are liking and sharing and subscribing, then more and more people will have it pop up on their screen. And that's the kind of thing that's going to help to expand the reach of this Bible study. So by all means, feel free to do so. You don't have to. I'm just glad you're here. I'm glad to be here myself. So we'll see you next week. Peace.